When I was a kid, I was told not to look at outside information. I was told that if I did, I would lose my faith. I have not found that to be the case. I have not lost, only gained. But in a way, it makes a lot of sense that this would be what people would perceive, because at that time, information was hard to come by. To get credible information from a reliable source was not a click away. So, what they could find was information about outside information, and that was filtered through the hands of people who were invested in it being treated as out of bounds. So often they did not understand what the original source was saying, but did understand that it was different, so it was framed as wrong. I'm one of the ones born right between being called Gen X or Millennial, so in my lifetime, access to information has expanded exponentially. When I was a kid, I used card catalogs at my Midwest Christian school, and now I have the whole world at my fingertips. Even within the last few months, it's become easier than ever for me to answer my own curiosities on questions I have about my faith, as AI starts to put together summaries to get me started. But this journey I'm alluding to all started one day, 8 years ago, when I Googled, what to do when losing your faith. Honestly, I'm not sure that question could have been put into a search engine much earlier in the timeline and have had something valuable get pulled up. The timing of my life humbles me with gratitude for this access. Had my parents, grandparents, or heaven knows anyone further back dared to ask this question out loud, they would have been shunned. There wasn't anything to do about losing your faith, other than to double down on it, even if you don't feel it anymore. Any questions you did ask need to be answered in a way that closed that voice off, because it can only get you ostracized. Add to that mix that anything outside of Christianity looked as awful as possible to them, because if somebody had either been dumb enough or smart enough, scared enough or brave enough to leave the church, they would have been leaving mainstream society. And humans are wired for connection, so they would have ended up in some sort of society that looked questionable to the original society. And maybe it was, because there were so few options. Or else, the person would have been so alone that their life started to reflect that pain in self-harming ways that from the outside looked foreboding and evil, but from the inside felt like isolation and the severe torture of solitary confinement. But with the rules of us versus them in play, no one could truly go check in with them. And without checking in on them, the very real experience wouldn't be known, and it would only be judged as very, very bad. So, if that was the experience for as far back as my family tree can show me, of course my elders would say that outside information will cause you to lose your faith. Why would they tell me anything other than stay right here? It was scary out there, and they have visible evidence that it will steal your soul. And in a way they were right, since that was as far as they could see. And I trusted them as I tried to reach towards God. But there were a lot of things that didn't make full sense to me, and none of the responses about them gave me enough to grip onto. So when it started to accumulate and things got too painful to hold, my faith started slipping. And I tried to hold out, but I found myself Googling that sentence. And I could, because I was born at the right time to be able to ask. And yet, even in private, it was very hard to go against every piece of advice that had been told. Typing that sentence felt like a sin, a very big one. But it did feel like a forgivable one that I could commit to keep me from falling into an unforgivable one. Well, I found a list of books, and that started my journey. I was never entirely alone on it, but it was still absolutely terrifying, absolutely gut-wrenching, and in many, many ways, devastatingly isolating. But humans are resilient, and I weathered it. I made do with the consolation that if this information is out there, then I'm not actually alone in this headspace. It took a long time, years, to wiggle around even a small, minute amount. I grew up with the belief that you must read the Bible literally, and that impacted a lot of things. And a lot of those things deeply impacted the mere notion that I might be self-sovereign enough to investigate my own beliefs. So investigating my beliefs felt like a crime. I was appalled at myself and terrified of what the results might be. I felt like I was holding my breath the whole time. I was looking over my shoulder. I was looking up at the clouds for lightning bolts. It was not a fun time. And at first, all I was doing was reading the Bible, but I was reading the Bible and asking my questions. I've come a long way from there, and I'm no longer scared to investigate things. I'm no longer scared to interrogate my thoughts. I'm no longer scared to interrogate my beliefs. I'm no longer scared to hold them side by side with contrasting beliefs and authentically weigh them out against one another. And I'm now comfortable with authentically sitting with my own heart's beat to see what feels like the God I know, that I've always known deep inside of me. If somebody tries to ask me to stop researching this way, I politely tell them, no thank you, I've already done it that way. Because now, there is no way I'm ever going to live inside a world that's only functional if I only read a portion of things existing on this planet. I'm going to live in a world where I investigate to my heart's content, knowing that truth cannot be disproven. I've learned a lot, and if you're interested, I'm really excited to share about it with you. I love creative writing, and I love researching my questions down deep. So I want to bring art and logic together on my journey to God. I wrote out this story in another way a few weeks ago. My feelings sometimes fall out of my fingers when I need to move emotions through me, and what so often seems to come out is a free-form poem that feels like playing the piano to my soul. I want to share it next. After that, I'll sign off and start to craft our next chat. I have a lot of things I've been asking and seeking and thinking over, round and back again, and I'm so excited to have found someone to talk about it with. For now, I leave you my piano of words. They told me it was safe here, tucked away from the world, insisted looking elsewhere was for those leaving the fold. To leave the fold, they said, would be leaving God. I would be choosing the world instead of Him, an idea too objectionable to my tender heart, who knew that God was good. I listened. I waited. Were they experiencing something? I wasn't. Was God meeting them? I was looking around sad, confused, and alone. Do they mean what they say? Because I don't. But I'm desperate to fit the correct mold so God can love me. If I focus hard enough, I can make myself mean it. I dedicated myself to the craft of molding me out of shape, saying the right words and pressing my inner voice into the recesses of my hollowed out soul. I waited. I listened. I waited. Keep going, good and faithful servant. I think that's right. I kept going until I collapsed. And the awful thing was, by that point, no one knew me anymore. I sure didn't. And they sure didn't. When I got honest, and when I asked out loud, well, I wish I hadn't, their responses were hard to take. Every version seemed to pain me. Sometimes they seemed happy and I felt held back from joy. Sometimes they seemed to be faking and I wasn't up for that anymore. Sometimes they would look at me for one long pause before turning around to leave me with less than what I started with. Sometimes they got frustrated that I dared to ask and they began to correct. But the questions existed before I did, and they were asking themselves. They just chose me as a mouthpiece. I knew that. I felt the gravity of the responsibility they asked me to undertake. Ask. 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 Someone needs to speak our asking. We have no throat of our own, but we exist. And I became the mouthpiece because I believed them. They were right. And I believed them in a way that now I had these questions in my bones. There was no going back. These questions are me now. I'm definitely going to ask. No one could answer, at least no one that I knew. People would respond, but responses are not always answers. Feeling the heartbeat of the questions, I couldn't walk away. So I lay down and began to cry. People said if I ask such things and don't take their responses as fully satisfactory, it meant I don't actually love God. Do I love God? I asked myself because I nearly believed them, nearly accepted that lie. The lie that wrestling with God means I don't love Him and I've left Him, even when my hands are pinning Him to the ground. The dark night of the soul is so dark, I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I nearly forgot I had a face, or a body, or a life. I lost myself there, darkness like an unlit cavern, while I tried to cling to life, tried to remember what light was like. I wrestled my memory of shadows because they don't exist in the dark. I tried to do it the old way, tried to make things right, but a lot cannot be done in the darkness that can be done in the light. So eventually I stopped. I sat down. I gave up. I became one with the darkness, became one with the place where not just the questions live, but where all things reside, and yet no things at the same time. Just about the time I thought I might die, so alone and overwhelmed, I let go because I had nothing left. And that's when I heard it. A still, small voice. You found me. I'm here. What? I said. They told me this is where the devil lives. I started to back away. You aren't you. You're trying to trick me. You're trying to pull me away. Silence, oblivion, panic, and devastation. Who can save me from myself? Who can make this right? What do I do? I'm so alone here, lost from everyone else's sight. And then the terror truly set in. All I had left were my feelings. They were all I had in this world. And I wasn't sure I wanted them, but they sure wanted me. Certain I'd never encounter God. Certain it was now only me. I started to name my feelings, started to greet them by name. This is panic. And in the darkness, my mind chose new sight. I saw panic as a river, one I didn't need to stand in, just beside. I felt her presence acutely, but I learned she wasn't me. She was a visitor. She would come, but she would also, at some point, go. Perhaps for the first time, I saw a layer which I could label not me. And that was the beginning of seeing I was actually trustworthy. Then, a lot of labels came raining to the ground. Looking down and around, that's a lot of things which suddenly I see seem to be not me. Not even questioning how I could see without sight, now that I embodied not light. If that's not me, who am I? Middle age and not one clue. The work is just starting, and I'm so weary. But what else can I do? I'm not sure how I got here, so I'm not sure my way out. I can't see a thing. I whisper 1 decibel above unsaid, a prayer. Please don't hate me. I don't know what else to do, and I reached for the once off-limit tools. And the most unexpected thing happened. I looked at the tool and I saw God. Well, not that I saw God's form, but I saw that God was there, in the very thing they told me was there to steal my soul. That voice I had heard saying, "You found me, here I am." That wasn't a trick. I wasn't being pulled away, only in. And a love so powerful overcame me that without words then I knew. They've never come here. Why should they know who lives here? It's sad I believed it for so long, but oh, the glories that have been unleashed by not giving up until I actually had truly seen God. Until next time.